He was 5 years old. His mother had just told him that his older brother had been eaten by starving neighbors. Not a metaphor. Not a bedtime story to scare him. Information delivered coldly in a Ukraine ravaged by Stalin's forced famine, where millions were genuinely dying of hunger, and where some had genuinely done the unthinkable. That 5-year-old boy, carrying that image in his head, he becomes Andrei Chikatilo, the butcher of Rostov, one of the most prolific serial killers in human history. 52 officially confirmed victims, children, women, young men. But here's the question nobody ever asks correctly. It's not, how does someone become a monster? The real question is, what gets planted inside a child before they even have the words to understand it? Because criminal psychology has identified something criminologists see in every case. Not violence, not poverty, not genetics, something far more subtle, far more common, and potentially far more dangerous. We'll get there. Exactly at the midpoint of this video, first, 4 children, 4 different countries, 4 different mistakes made by the adults who were supposed to protect them. There's a parental mistake you never see in psychology textbooks. Not physical violence, not literal abandonment. The lie about identity. Ted Bundy grew up believing his mother was his sister, not a metaphor, literal reality. His grandmother raised him as her son. His biological mother, a young woman who had given birth out of wedlock in 1940s America, a time when that was absolute social disgrace, lived in the same house, introduced as his older sister. The lie wasn't malicious in the sense that his grandparents wanted to protect him from something. But here's what developmental psychology knows with certainty. A child whose fundamental reality, who their parents are, where they come from, is built on a fiction, isn't protected. They're left without ground to stand on. John Bowlby, the father of attachment theory, described it this way. A child needs a coherent narrative of themselves to build something anchored. Without that narrative, they develop something particular, an extraordinary capacity to perform an identity for others because their own has never had a stable foundation. Bundy was known for his ability to seduce, to appear exactly what each person needed him to be. Brilliant student, promising politician, charming neighbor, the perfect boyfriend. That wasn't calculated manipulation in the clinical sense. It was the only language he'd known since childhood. The parental mistake here isn't cruelty, it's erasure, erasing the truth of a child's origins to protect them by denying them precisely what they need to exist as a real person. And here's our first open question, one we'll hold on to for later. Could any of these children have been saved? Were there moments, windows, where everything could have gone differently? We'll come back to that. Dennis Nilsen was 4 years old when his father walked out on the family. No dramatic scene, no explanation. His father, a Norwegian soldier, reportedly an alcoholic, simply left one day and never came back. In that void, Nilsen found a substitute, his maternal grandfather, Andrew White, a fisherman, a solid present man who took him everywhere, the only adult male who mattered. Andrew White died of a heart attack at sea. Nilsen was 5 years old. His mother, overwhelmed by grief, did something whose consequences she likely never measured. She brought her 5-year-old son to view the body in the open casket without explaining to him what he was about to see, without preparing him, without giving him any language for what he was experiencing. A 5-year-old child with no preparation facing the corpse of the only person who had truly loved him. Nilsen would later write in journals composed over decades in prison, an autobiography titled History of a Drowning Boy, that this was the precise moment something fused inside him. Death and love, the motionless body and presence, absence as a permanent form of closeness. That's not speculative psychoanalytic interpretation. That's what he wrote himself over decades with chilling clinical precision. Nilsen killed men he had just met. He kept their bodies in his bed. He talked to them. He cooked meals for them. He behaved toward them as if they were life companions. Forensic psychology calls this motivational necrophilia. Not sexual desire in the traditional sense, but the compulsive need to control departure, to make sure no one ever leaves again. His biographer described him as a dog that had never been patted. His mother described him as just a normal, quiet boy. The parental mistake here isn't intention, it's the inability to see. To see that a child going through something enormous needs an adult who names it, who explains it, who stays in the room while reality falls apart. Stop. Because we've covered 2 cases, and if you've been listening since the beginning, you've probably thought, okay, violence, abandonment, neglect. We've heard these stories, and that's exactly where criminal psychology says something nobody wants to hear. Millions of children grew up in broken homes, millions lost a parent early, millions lived through family lies, silences, absences. The overwhelming majority of them never become killers. So why these 4? The answer that criminologists took decades to articulate clearly is this: it's not what happened, it's what didn't happen. In each of these cases, without exception, there was a moment, sometimes several, moments when an adult could have seen, when a teacher, a neighbor, a doctor, a therapist could have named what they were witnessing and intervened. Trauma doesn't create a monster. Trauma, followed by total silence from every adult who could have received it. Judith Herman, in her foundational work on complex trauma, put it this way: the wound doesn't come only from what happened. It comes from the absence of a witness, from a child who went through something unthinkable and who learned, because no one confirmed it, that what they were experiencing didn't really exist. And now, holding that, let's look at the last 2 cases differently. Aileen Wuornos was 4 years old when her mother abandoned her. She and her older brother left in the care of her maternal grandparents. Her grandparents never told her they were her grandparents. She grew up believing this household was her normal family. Her grandfather, Laurie Wuornos, beat her regularly with implements. Neighbors heard. School saw the bruises. Nobody ever did anything. At 14, she became pregnant after an assault. She gave birth to a child who was immediately placed for adoption. Months later, her grandmother died. Her grandfather threw her out. She was 15. She lived in the woods. She survived through prostitution. What Wuornos's psychology illustrates isn't simply violence. It's the normalization of violence. When a child grows up in an environment where blows are the language of relationship, where brutality is the grammar of everyday life, the brain doesn't register it as an anomaly, it records it as the norm. Albert Bandura, in his work on social learning, demonstrated something fundamental. Children don't only learn what they're taught, they learn what they see repeated without consequence by the adults around them. Wuornos didn't learn that violence was wrong. She learned that violence is what the strong do to the weak, and that the world is divided into predators and prey. Between 1989 and 1990, Wuornos killed 7 men in Florida, all clients. She claimed at trial that she had acted in self-defense. The psychological truth is more complex. She was repeating the only script she had ever been given. In a hostile world, strike before being struck. The parental mistake here belongs to the entire system. The grandfather who hit, the mother who left, the school that saw and stayed silent, the neighborhood that heard and looked away. And this question stays open because it might concern you directly. When you see something and stay silent, what are you transmitting back to the child from the beginning? The one who was told his brother had been eaten. Andrei Chikatilo grew up in Soviet Ukraine in the 1940s. The famine had killed millions. His father was conscripted into the Red Army, captured by the Germans, and on his return, treated as a traitor by his own countrymen. Chikatilo carried his father's shame to school every day. Children mocked him. Teachers looked away. He suffered from hydrocephalus, a buildup of fluid in the brain that caused chronic bedwetting. Every night he wet his bed, his mother beat him. Without understanding it was neurological, without ever seeing a doctor. His only sexual experience as a teenager came when he pinned a younger girl to the ground. Her resistance aroused him. The story circulated through his school within days. The mockery lasted for years. He tried to enter Moscow State University, failed. He taught in rural schools, mocked by his own students. He lost job after job. The humiliation wasn't an event, it was the fabric of his life. And here is the concept criminologists call the humiliation cascade. James Gilligan, a psychiatrist who spent decades working with murderers in prison, articulated it in his book, Violence. Behind every act of severe violence lies a story of shame, unresolved, unacknowledged, with no way out. It's not shame that kills. It's shame with no exit. No one to see it, to name it, to offer an alternative. Chikatilo killed 52 people between 1978 and 1990. The USSR initially refused to admit that a serial killer existed. Soviet ideology held that such a phenomenon was impossible in a communist society. Investigators who persisted were dismissed. An entire system looked away. Just as his mother had watched him wet his bed and chosen punishment over a doctor. The parental mistake here is active humiliation, and its most devastating corollary, the complete absence of any space where that shame could have been deposited, heard, and transformed. An American man, an American woman, a British man, a Soviet Ukrainian man. But here's what criminal psychology has finally isolated. The common factor criminologists find in virtually every serial killer profile: it's not violence. Millions of children are abused and never become killers. It's not poverty. It's not literal abandonment. It's not genetics. It's the absence of a single attentive adult at a critical moment of development who could have seen what that child was going through and named it. Not saved, not healed, just seen, just named. Psychiatrist Bessel van der Kolk, in The Body Keeps the Score, the best-selling scientific work on trauma of the last decade, puts it this way: trauma doesn't destroy because something happened. It destroys because the child was left alone with what happened. It's the isolation inside the trauma, not the trauma itself, that creates the conditions for an irreparable fracture. In each of these 4 cases, there were adults who knew: neighbors, teachers, doctors, family members. Some were afraid. Some didn't want to get involved. Some thought it wasn't their place. All of them chose silence. And here's the question I'll leave you with, not to make you feel guilty, but to keep somewhere. Is there a child near you today, right now, going through something that nobody is seeing? You don't have to save anyone, you just have to see. And sometimes that's enough. One question remains. We talked about those who were broken, those who sank. But what about those who resisted? Because becoming yourself, truly yourself, not the version others built in your place, might be the hardest thing a human being can ever do. The next video goes where nobody wants to look.